I worked my butt off for 3 years to become the design director. But today, the general manager handed the position to his newly graduated college mentee. He looked me in the eye and said, "Harper, you're getting older. Your creativity and energy just can't compete with the younger crowd. It's time to step aside." I fought back, my voice trembling. But I led the team to complete every single major project in this company. That was because the company gave you the resources. It doesn't prove your personal capability. Ethan, you know damn well. Harper, call me Mr. Vance. At work, I am your superior, not your husband. Please cooperate with the company's transfer. Chloe chimed in, trying to play the peacemaker. Ethan, maybe I should just give the position back to your wife. I don't want to cause trouble. Ethan didn't even bother to correct her familiar way of calling his name. Instead, his voice softened significantly when he spoke to her. Business is not a game, Chloe. I've already notified HR. It's official. Just focus on your new role. I'll personally teach you anything you don't understand. But when he turned his gaze back to me, his eyes were freezing cold. You will continue to work on your current projects. When they're done, just submit them to Chloe for approval. So I was supposed to do all the heavy lifting, while Chloe took all the credit. I looked at the face of this man. The man I had been married to for 5 years and worked with for 8. Suddenly, I laughed. No need. I'm resigning right now. I didn't want the design director position anymore. And I didn't want to be Mrs. Vance either. When I walked back to my desk to draft my resignation letter, Ethan followed me. You've been here for 8 years, Harper. Don't throw away everything you've worked so hard for just because you're throwing a tantrum. You're not a fresh graduate. Do I really need to teach you how the real world works? So he did know how hard I had worked to get everything I had. Yet, he chose to hand the fruits of my labor to another woman. My eyes burned, but my fingers didn't stop typing. Mr. Vance, this is working hours. Please do not micromanage your employees' personal decisions. His breathing turned heavy. Sensing the curious glances from the surrounding cubicles, he lowered his voice. Do you have any idea how hard it is for someone your age to find a job? If you go out for interviews now, you'll get filtered out in the first round. Stop being so naive. I pulled the resignation letter from the printer and signed my name without a second thought. Mr. Vance, will you sign it? He snatched the paper, his face darkened with rage. Harper, do you really have to push things this far? I'm not pushing anything. I just don't want to work here anymore. There are still several projects that need your final touch. If you leave like this, what is Chloe supposed to do? Finally, the truth came out. He didn't care about me leaving. He just wanted me to pave a smooth road for his precious mentee before I vanished. I opened my laptop, uploaded the resignation letter, and hit send, CCing both Ethan and HR. Can you approve it now? I don't think you want me to personally explain to HR that you're holding up my resignation because of our personal relationship, right? I knew he hated mixing business with pleasure more than anything. In our 8 years of working together, he never let me step into his office alone. If there was work, he would come to my cubicle to brief me. Even when I was sick, he never let me carpool with him to work. When I worked late and forgot to eat, he would rather send me a Snapchat message telling me to pick up takeout at the front desk than bring me a bite of food himself. I used to think there was nothing wrong with that. Keeping business and personal life strictly separated was our mutual rule. But since Chloe arrived, I realized that rules weren't unbreakable. It just depended on who they were being broken for. She could eat with him in the cafeteria, and she could leave her personal belongings in his office. He would proudly introduce her to everyone. This is my college junior, please take good care of her. Yet he never let anyone in the office know that I was his wife. So, I was absolutely sure he wouldn't let me go to HR. Sure enough, he loosened his tie, glaring at me as he spat out through his teeth. Fine. Don't regret this. I will personally oversee Chloe's upcoming projects. Don't think this company can't run without you. You have 1 month to hand over all your work to Director Chloe. After that, I won't stop you. He turned and stormed back into the general manager's office before I could reply. Before the door slammed shut, the last thing I saw was him gently draping a blanket over Chloe, who was fast asleep on his office couch. My stomach churned. Even though I tried to act like I didn't care, I couldn't ignore the dull ache in my gut. But that didn't stop me from grabbing my phone and sending a text to a contact. I'll resign in a month. Let's meet to discuss the package. It was late when I took 2 subway transfers and finally made it home. Ethan wasn't back yet. Usually, he drove and I took the subway, so he was always home before me. I sat on the couch in the dark, quietly looking around the apartment we had lived in for 5 years. Back when we bought this place, Ethan wasn't the general manager yet. We were just ordinary designers. We saved every penny for a long time to afford the down payment on this condo. Even though it was far from downtown and had a terrible layout, I felt it was all worth it because it gave me a sense of belonging. But sitting here tonight, for some reason, it felt incredibly foreign. At 10 p.m., Ethan walked through the door holding a cake box. I was slightly stunned. We didn't have the habit of celebrating anniversaries. Maybe today's fight made him feel uneasy, and he wanted to use this to smooth things over. Seeing me on the couch, he looked surprised. "You're still awake?" I stood up and walked over. But my hand froze in midair. Half of the cake was gone. The heart-shaped center had been scooped out and eaten. I stared at it for a few seconds, making sure it wasn't just some weird artistic design. He tossed the box onto the dining table carelessly. I bought it to celebrate Chloe's promotion, but she only took a few bites and said she was worried about the calories. "I remembered you said you wanted cake the other day, so I brought the rest back for you." My throat felt like it was blocked by a rock. I couldn't make a sound. Years ago, to pay off the mortgage, I never bought any nice clothes. I wore hand-me-downs from my older sister. When I went to the grocery store, I only bought the bruised, discounted vegetables. But from the day we finally paid off the house, I told him, Harper, will never take anyone's leftovers again. And now he wanted me to eat a leftover cake that he had bought for another woman. As the sound of the shower started running in the bathroom, I unlocked my phone and began drafting a divorce agreement. The next morning, Ethan and I stood at the elevator door together. I looked at him confused. This wasn't his usual time to leave. He was smiling, texting on his phone, and said casually, "Chloe is having her period today and isn't feeling well. I'm going to pick her up. If I remember correctly, her apartment is a 40-minute detour, right? It's just 40 minutes. Just a press on the gas pedal." The elevator mirror reflected our faces. One was pale and exhausted, even with full makeup. The other was glowing, staring happily at his screen. My mind drifted back to a rainy day when I was shopping with my friend. It was pouring, and I called him to pick me up from the subway station. He had said, "Just Uber back. Driving out in this weather is too much trouble." A 10-minute drive was too much trouble, but 40 minutes was just a press on the gas pedal. When the elevator reached the lobby, he hesitated for a second. "Do you want a ride?" I shook my head and stepped out. He looked relieved as he pressed the close button. When the elevator indicator showed he had reached the parking garage, I pulled out my phone and called Chloe. "I'm taking the morning off." "Reason?" she asked, sounding entitled. "Buying a car." "Did you tell Ethan?" "No need." By the time I hung up, I was already in a cab heading to the dealership. Browsing, test driving, signing, paying, and taking the keys. It took less than half a day to get everything done. When I pressed the key fob and my new SUV beeped in response, a sense of liberation washed over me. That was when Ethan finally called. I picked up. "Harper, buying a car is a huge deal. Why didn't you discuss it with me?" "I used my own money." "That's not what I mean. Do you even know how to pick a good car? Come back now, I'll go with you when I have time." "You've been saying that for 2 years." But I still took the subway for 2 years. The line went dead silent. When I parked the car at the company garage, Ethan was already waiting there. "You drove back alone? How long has it been since you last drove? Do you know how dangerous that is?" Looking at his anxious face, I almost laughed out loud. When the heavy rain flooded the subway station, and I had to walk 2 miles home in the storm, he wasn't worried. When I sprained my ankle and limped to the subway every day, he wasn't worried. When I worked until 2 a.m. and took a cab home alone, he wasn't worried. But now that I had my own car, he suddenly cared about my safety. "Ethan, I hired a driving instructor. I'll be fine after a few laps." He froze. In the past, if he scolded me like this, I would have argued back. I would have stayed up all night just to prove him wrong. But now, I was as calm as if I were answering what I had for breakfast. His expression hardened. "Harper, you seem different." A delivery guy interrupted us, running toward Ethan. Ethan stepped forward to take the paper bag. "Chloe didn't eat lunch. It took me forever to convince her to drink a cup of coffee. Kids these days," he mumbled, shaking his head with a fond smile. "Not like us back then." I cut him off. "Yeah, not like us back then, when we couldn't even afford a single cup of Starbucks." His smile froze on his face. I didn't stop. I walked straight past him and went to the office. At 4 p.m., I was doing the handover with Chloe. Ethan walked in with 2 cups of iced coffee. I frowned. In 8 years, this was the first time he had ever brought anything to my desk. I knew I was just benefiting from Chloe's presence. She squealed with joy and threw her arms around his neck. Ethan instinctively caught her, but when his eyes met mine, he quickly pushed her away. "I was just worried you guys might be thirsty." Chloe took a sip, giggling. "Thanks, Ethan. You're the sweetest. Since you cover all my meals, I'm saving so much money." Ethan saw that I hadn't touched my cup. "Why aren't you drinking? Try it." I pushed the cup away. "No thanks, Mr. Vance. Did you forget I'm highly allergic to caffeine?" His face turned sour. Seeing no one was looking, he lowered his voice. "This is exactly why I hate buying you things. You never give any positive feedback." "Have you ever bought me anything?" I asked flatly. His Adam's apple bobbed. He muttered something about just trying to be nice and walked away. I thought the handover would go quickly so I could leave early. But Chloe was way more difficult than I anticipated. I had already organized all client folders by industry standards and archived all design drafts. She looked at the screen and sneered. Your file formats are a mess. I don't understand them. And you only have digital copies. What if the server crashes? I need you to handwrite the project sources and client contact details for every single account. After 2 weeks of her constant rejection and nitpicking, I finally lost my patience and slammed my hand on the desk. Ethan, who had been playing deaf and dumb for days, immediately summoned us to his office. Harper, what is your problem? Chloe is the design director now. You do what she says. I won't sign your resignation until Director Chloe is completely satisfied. Chloe gave me a smug look. Before leaving, she turned to me and said, "Oh, and bring a vanilla latte to my office, will you?" I crossed my arms and looked at Ethan. Ethan, is this what you call keeping business and personal life separate? Harper, whether you like it or not, she is the director now. If you embarrass her in public, how is she supposed to lead the team? If you're done venting, get out. It doesn't look good for us to be alone in here. For the first time in 5 years of marriage, I felt suffocated standing in the same room with him. According to labor laws, I am leaving in exactly 30 days. She can deal with it. Before starting at my new job, I needed to pack, move, and sell the condo. I didn't have time to play games with them. On my last day, my desk was completely cleared except for a coffee mug and my personal laptop. Since Ethan had to attend a conference at the headquarters today, he had signed my release forms yesterday. My offboarding was officially complete. After saying goodbye to some colleagues, I picked up my box, ready to walk out. But Chloe and a couple of security guards blocked the exit. Harper, we suspect you have confidential company data on your personal laptop. We need to seize it for our IT department to inspect. That laptop contained all my hard work from the past few years. I took it home with me every single day. There was no way I was letting them touch it. I can show you the files here, but you are not taking my property. Chloe let out a cold laugh. You have a lot of new design templates and custom fonts on there, don't you? I froze. Those were the templates I created after deciding to resign, meant for my upcoming portfolio. I hadn't told a soul. The only person who had access to my laptop password was Ethan. Chloe raised her voice, making sure the entire office could hear. Some people have zero professional ethics. The company spent so much money training her, yet she refuses to hand over core materials. If everyone acted like this, how is our department supposed to function? I had tried to leave peacefully, but that didn't mean she could walk all over me. This is my personal laptop. The templates and fonts are my original creations, developed in my own time. They have nothing to do with this company. You have no legal right to confiscate my work. A few colleagues nearby started whispering in my defense. Yeah, everyone knows Harper did most of the work here. Her drafts are always original. Why would she need to steal anything? Exactly. Someone's just throwing their weight around. Chloe's face flushed with anger. She snapped at the guards. What are you waiting for? Grab the laptop. If the company loses precious data, can you guys afford the damages? She pointed a finger at the whispering staff. Anyone who wants to follow her out the door is welcome to help her. Everyone quickly looked down, pretending to be busy. 2 guards grabbed my arms. Chloe easily unlocked my laptop using Ethan's birthday. She clicked through a few folders, smirked, and said, "Well, nothing special anyway." She held the laptop out to me, but my arms were pinned back by the guards. I couldn't reach it. She smiled, opened her hand, and let the laptop drop. Crash. Then, she stepped on the screen with her sharp stiletto heel. The LCD screen shattered into webbed cracks. The crunch of the LCD screen was sharp, like a dry branch snapping underfoot in winter. The entire design department of Vance Group went dead silent. Nobody clicked their mouse. Nobody shuffled their papers. 50 designers sat frozen in their cubicles, their eyes fixed on the entrance where the 2 security guards still held my arms pinned behind my back. Chloe stood over the ruined laptop, her sharp stiletto heel resting right in the center of the shattered glass. A slow, victorious smile spread across her face, her eyes gleaming with a petty, unchecked malice. Oops, Chloe said, her voice high, carrying a sweet, fake innocence that made my stomach turn. My hand slipped. But it's fine, right? Since you claim there was nothing belonging to the company on here anyway, a broken screen shouldn't matter to you. She looked at the guards, gesturing for them to let me go. Let her go. We don't want anyone saying the Vance Group is inhospitable to its former employees. The guards released their grip. My shoulders ached from the strain, but I didn't rub them. I stood perfectly still, looking down at the laptop I had used to build the company's entire design portfolio over 5 years. The casing was warped, the keyboard keys popping out of their sockets like broken teeth. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a tantrum. Instead, I slowly pulled my phone from my blazer pocket and pressed the stop button on my video recording app. What? What are you doing? Chloe's smile faltered, a sudden sharp prickle of alarm surfacing in her eyes. This is my personal phone, I said, my voice quiet, flat, and entirely calm. And I've just recorded the entire interaction. From you ordering the guards to physically restrain me, to you unlocking my personal property using a password you obtained illegally, to you deliberately destroying my private property worth $3,000. I tapped the screen, dialing a number I knew by heart. What is your problem, Harper? Chloe snapped, her voice rising in panic as she saw the dialing screen. Are you really going to make a scene over a cheap laptop? Ethan will just buy you a new one. This is the police department, I said into the phone, ignoring her completely. I'd like to report a case of physical assault, illegal restraint, and intentional destruction of private property, worth over $3,000 at the Vance Group headquarters on 5th Street. The entire office gasped. Harper, cancel the call. Chloe screamed, her face turning a sickly, translucent white under her makeup. She reached out to snatch my phone, but I took a step back, my gaze so cold she froze in her tracks. The police will be here in 10 minutes, Chloe, I said, packing my notebook and my coffee mug into my cardboard box. I suggest you call your mentor and ask him if he has time to bail you out of the precinct before his conference ends. The rain outside the Vance Group lobby was starting again, washing over the heavy glass doors in long, cold sheets. I carried my cardboard box under my arm, my left hand holding my ruined laptop. I didn't look back at the elevators where Chloe was currently being questioned by 2 uniformed police officers, her face covered in tears as she tried to explain that the destruction was just a workplace misunderstanding. Harper. The deep, calm voice cut through the sound of the rain. A sleek, black Maybach pulled up to the curb, its headlights cutting through the gray mist. The passenger door opened, and a tall man in a dark charcoal overcoat stepped out, holding a large black umbrella. Julian Sterling. The head of the Sterling Group, the multi-billion-dollar global conglomerate that was the Vance Group's primary corporate rival, and the company that had secretly recruited me 3 weeks ago. You look like you've been through a war, Harper, Julian said, his movements deliberate and elegant as he held the umbrella over my head, completely shielding me from the cold rain. I'm fine, Julian, I said, handing him my ruined laptop. But my portfolio, the templates and the custom fonts I spent the last 6 months designing, they're on this drive. Julian didn't look worried. He smiled, a faint, reassuring light in his dark eyes as he took my cardboard box and ushered me into the warm, leather-scented interior of his car. Don't worry, Julian said, closing the door behind us. Our IT department has already synced your personal cloud drive. The moment you uploaded your resignation letter last night, we secured your backups. Your hard work is perfectly safe. I let out a long, slow breath, the tension that had held my shoulders stiff for 30 days finally melting away. Thank you, Julian, I said. You don't need to thank me, Harper, Julian said, sliding a thick leather-bound folder toward me. The Sterling Group has just finalized our proposal for the city's landmark library project. With your templates and your leadership, we will take the contract, and the Vance Group will have nothing left to bid with. I looked at the folder. The fire that had been completely extinguished by 5 years of domestic isolation and corporate neglect suddenly ignited in my chest with an unbreakable strength. Let's do it, Julian, I said, my voice carrying a quiet, terrifying resolve. Let's show him exactly what the older crowd can build. 3 days passed. Ethan returned from his headquarters conference to find the design department in absolute chaotic ruin. Chloe had spent her first 3 days as director screaming at the staff, demanding they retrieve lost files that she didn't know how to access, and the company's daily project submissions had fallen behind by 2 weeks. The board of directors had already issued a formal warning to his office regarding the delays. Where is Harper? Ethan roared, walking into the empty penthouse at 11 p.m., his tie loosened, his face pale and sweating from his stomach pain. Why isn't she picking up my calls? Does she really think she can just walk away from her responsibilities? The house was dark, cold, and smelled faintly of dust. He flicked the light switch, expecting to see me sitting on the couch waiting to take his coat and massage his shoulders. But the living room looked unnaturally empty. All of my personal belongings, the small paintings I had hung in the hallway, the knitted throw blankets, the design magazines, were gone. My wardrobe in the master bedroom was stripped bare, leaving only his clothes hanging in the dark closet. And on the dining table, sitting right next to the half-eaten leftover cake he had brought home 4 days ago, was the finalized divorce agreement. I had waived all claims to his personal assets, taking only my legally earned salary and my share of the condo's valuation. No, she's just trying to scare me, Ethan whispered, his hand shaking as he picked up the paper. She has no money. She has no connections. Where could she possibly go? He dialed my number again. The number you have dialed is currently switched off or out of coverage. He tried to message me on WeChat, blocked. On Instagram, blocked. He called his legal assistant. Have you reached Harper's lawyer yet? Why is she demanding a sale of the condo? We bought that house together. Mr. Vance. The assistant's voice was shaking on the other end. Miss Harper's legal representative is the senior partner at Sterling and Associates. They've already filed a partition lawsuit in court. You either have to buy out her 50% share at the current market value of $1.2 million, or the court will force a public auction of the property. The phone slipped from his fingers, crashing loudly onto the dining table right next to the dried, moldy leftover cake. He stood alone in the dark, cold kitchen, realizing that the quiet, reliable warmth of the woman who had protected him for 8 years had completely vanished, leaving him with nothing but a hollow shell. The annual municipal landmark design bid was held 3 weeks later in the grand ballroom of the plaza. The room was packed with the city's business elite, and the air was warm, smelling of expensive champagne and fresh flowers. Ethan arrived with Chloe. Chloe was dressed in a white designer gown, her face pale, her knuckles white as she clutched her presentation folder. She had spent the last 2 weeks trying to reconstruct her designs using the incomplete drafts she had copied from my server, confident that she could still secure the $500 million contract. Don't worry, Ethan, Chloe whispered, her voice high and tight. My templates are perfect. The Vance Group's proposal is a guaranteed winner. I hope so, Ethan muttered, his hand reaching down to rub his stomach. The board is watching us, Chloe. If we lose this contract, the bank will freeze our liquidity lines. The lights in the grand hall dimmed. The presentations will begin, the bidding commissioner announced. Vance Group, you are up first. Chloe took the stage, her high heels clicking loudly on the wood. But the moment she opened the slides, her voice began to shake. The templates she had stolen were incomplete, lacking the core structural calculations and the customized typography that made the layout flow. When the project coordinators began to ask about the load-bearing parameters of the central glass dome, she froze, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. The structural integrity will be handled by our engineering department, she stammered, her face turning a sickly, translucent white under the spotlights. We estimate the margin of error to be around 10%. 10%. One of the municipal coordinators frowned, his voice cold. Miss Dune, a 10% margin of error on a landmark public library is a structural hazard. Your proposal is completely unfeasible. Chloe stumbled back from the podium, her eyes filling with tears of pure public humiliation. Thank you, Miss Dune, the commissioner said. Sterling Designs, you are up next. I stood up from the Sterling Group section. I was dressed in a sharp, elegant midnight blue silk pantsuit, my posture perfect, my eyes carrying a cold, absolute confidence that seemed to dominate the entire room. As I walked toward the stage, the crowd of designers and investors began to murmur in hushed, shocked whispers. Harper, the former design director of Vance Group? She's representing Sterling Designs. Look at her slides. They're beautiful. The typography is completely custom. I took the podium. I didn't need notes. I didn't need a script. I had spent 8 years of my life understanding every corner of this city's architectural space. The Sterling Group's proposal is built on an organic, zero-emission integration model. I began, my voice clear, steady, and projecting without effort. Our structural templates have been verified by the National Engineering Association, ensuring a margin of error of exactly 0.02%. I flipped through the slides, presenting a masterpiece of original design, perfect execution, and profound strategic depth that left the entire municipal board standing in a long, continuous ovation. It was over. The Sterling Group won the $500 million landmark contract with a perfect score. The Vance Group was officially disqualified, their proposal flagged as a structural and financial hazard. As we walked out into the grand lobby of the plaza, the scene was chaotic. Mr. Vance, Ethan's father and the chairman of the board, stood near the exit, his legal team already surrounding Ethan and Chloe. Ethan, you've destroyed the company, the chairman roared, his voice shaking. The glass windows of the lobby. You fired our star designer, handed her templates to an incompetent intern, and lost us our largest municipal contract in 10 years. Father, please. It was a temporary setback. Ethan wept, his hand clutching his stomach, his face gaunt and pale. Harper cheated. She stole our data. I have the signed release form from your own design director, Chairman Vance, I said, stepping out from behind Julian Sterling, my hand holding the notarized waiver Chloe had signed, confirming that I had zero involvement in or access to your company's bidding parameters during my final month. Your son's Accusation is a public defamation of character, and my lawyers will file a claim. In court tomorrow morning. Timothy's face went from pale to a dark, furious red. He turned to look at Chloe, his eyes filled with a sudden murderous disgust. You signed a release form? You let her take her portfolio. Ethan. Save me. Chloe wailed, her hands grabbing his lapels, her tears spilling over her cheeks. She forced me to sign it. She threatened to go to HR. About our relationship. Get off me. Ethan roared, pushing her off with a force that made her fall onto the marble floor, her expensive white gown covered in dirt. He took a step toward me, his hands shaking, his voice cracking with a raw, desperate panic. Harper, please. I was wrong. I was blind. The condo. I'll give you the condo. I'll sign everything over to you. Just please come back. We were ordinary designers together. Remember? We shared that cheap coffee. I looked at the man who had allowed my 8 years of loyalty to be bought for a leftover cake. We were ordinary designers, Ethan, I said, my voice quiet and calm. But I grew up. And you're still trying to play your cheap, childish games. I turned my back on him, walking out of the lobby into the bright, warm afternoon sun, my hand holding Julian Sterling's arm. Behind me, the sound of the police sirens began to wail, and the 2 Dunes of the Vance group were led away in handcuffs, their dreams of corporate glory permanently ended in the dirt. The spring came to the city, washing the streets in a bright, warm light. The new municipal library project was progressing ahead of schedule, its glass walls reflecting the golden rays of the sun like a jewel. The Sterling Group's design had been praised by critics from across the globe as the most beautiful, innovative structure of the decade. I stood on the terrace of my new, state-of-the-art office on the top floor of the Sterling Group headquarters, looking out over the sparkling blue harbor. The wind was warm, carrying the clean scent of the sea and the ozone of the fresh air. My salary was $70,000 a month, with full performance-based equity, and my working hours were my own to manage. The door to the balcony opened, and Julian Sterling walked out, a warm cup of coffee in his hand. He set it in my palms, his fingers brushing against mine, with a quiet, profound warmth. The municipal board just approved our second phase permits, Harper, he smiled. You've done it again. I looked at the ring on my finger, a simple, elegant platinum band I had bought for myself with my first paycheck, reflecting the bright, warm sun of my new life. The gold-plated chains of my past had been completely destroyed, and the sky above us was finally, beautifully free.